Have you worried about the possibilities of you leaving insomnia because the trigger is still there? The thing that triggered your sleep struggles is still part of your life. Well, if this is a question that you've had, welcome. This video is perfect for you because this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into today's topic, I just want to say that I'm really glad to be back. For those of you who follow the channel closely, you know that I've been on, summer. We've taken like a summer vacation, and in fact, it was, myself and my family. We spent about 2 months in Europe, mostly in Valencia, Spain, where my kids were in summer camp, and me and my wife were picking up some Spanish and just enjoying some time off. It was super nice, and I'm back here refreshed with lots of ideas. Glad to be back, and with that said, I'm feeling a little bit rusty. Hopefully, I'll make sense today. But anyway, really glad to be back. And yes, the reason I wanted to talk about this topic today was that just before I left for vacation, actually, a student in our immunity program asked me. She basically said that she had understood why she had insomnia. She didn't actually tell me what like the kind of triggering event was, but she said something like this. Like she said, like, Daniel, the trigger for my insomnia hasn't actually changed. It's still there. Will this, like, the inner work, the education, etc., the program, will this still work for me, or should I wait? And you can see that could be like a scary proposition if somebody said you'll have to wait, because the trigger, the stressful thing that started the struggle sleep can we don't know how long it's going to last. It can be a long thing. So again, in this particular student, she didn't mention what her trigger was, but I just wrote down 3 common ones, so you have an idea what I'm talking about. So for example, we can say that we have a breakup, a separation from somebody, a divorce maybe, and we can easily see that could be a stressful event that creates trouble sleeping for us. And this could be a drawn out process that could take a long time. Or becoming a parent is a very common reason for us to have some trouble sleeping. And having a little newborn, you don't know when they're going to start sleeping on their own and stop waking up all the time. That could be years, right? Or a health issue that there are many things that can be stressful and triggering that we don't know how long they're going to last. So again, if we are afraid that there's no way our insomnia can change as long as the thing that triggered it is ongoing, that could be like a scary prospect. So with that in mind, I actually want to give the short answer right away. And the short answer to this question is that yes, we can leave insomnia even when that triggering event is ongoing. So I just want to put that out there right away for anyone that has been frazzled. But with that said, the short answer is often not as helpful as the more in-depth one. So today, I broke this class up into 3 parts. We're going to talk about why the trigger matters first, and then we're going to talk about why the trigger doesn't matter, and then I'm going to share with you my favorite insight when we have students in this situation. So let's jump right in, and first talk about why the trigger matters. And to see this, we need to just very quickly review what insomnia is or how it happens. So insomnia really happens typically when there is a stressful event that keeps us awake, and then that's A, that happens, and then B, our stressed brain, our brain that is in this hyperaroused state from the stressful event, it's kind of looking out for other threats, looking out for things to keep us safe from, and then it misidentifies being awake as abnormal. So if we take any of these examples, we can take becoming a parent that we talked about just now. We have we come home from the hospital with a small little baby, and we're stressed and we don't sleep for a night or two, and then the third night or something like that, the brain goes like, wait a minute, I'm not sleeping enough. This is a problem now. And this is the moment where the brain has kind of misidentified being awake as something dangerous, abnormal, a threat, something to do something about. And that is what's going to keep us having trouble sleeping, because when we're afraid of being awake, when the brain is afraid of being awake, that keeps us awake, which makes us more scared, which makes us, which creates this loop that we call insomnia. So insomnia, the way we define it here, is really a result of a fear of being awake. Now, so back to why the trigger matters now. The trigger matters, I think, because it can normalize our experience. So, for example, seeing that the trigger would keep anyone, or at least many, many people awake, that really can lead us to go like, oh, that's true. Maybe it is not so abnormal that I was awake a lot when I had a little baby, when I went through a separation, when I had health anxiety. It normalizes that experience. And also, when we see that many others who now no longer have any trouble sleeping, no longer have insomnia, they had the same trigger, that can also help like really normalize the situation. We're not so scared anymore because we saw that, it happened to many other people. That can lead to a great relief. So I think, to specify this, or to get, narrow this down a little bit, or to share with you what I'm thinking here, is that, for example, if one person hears the story of somebody who, like them, started having trouble sleeping when they became a parent, that can be like a great, like, okay, I'm not the only one, or another person had that specific trigger, they're now doing well. That can really create great relief. So when I have students, clients, I often ask about the trigger. What happened, and this is one of the reason. Now, another reason why the trigger matters is that if we have this, like, if the trigger is not something like a one-time event, but it's kind of an ongoing thing, then it matters because it can explain ongoing sleep disruption. If we have, again, going back to our examples, any of here in this one, any of these circumstances, like an ongoing separation, becoming a parent, having a health issue, uh, in any of these circumstances, we can see that it is quite likely that we won't sleep well because of sleep disruption. Anyone who's going through anything stressful is likely to have some more choppy sleep, and that is not insomnia. That's just, a normal part of a brain that's a little bit, um, extra alert. It's total normal sleep disruption. So before we go to the number two here, I thought it would be helpful to go a little bit deeper into the difference between sleep disruption and insomnia. So sleep disruption is choppy sleep that is expected given circumstances like the ones we talked about, or other circumstances too, like pain. I tried surfing for the first time in my life, actually more like a week and a half ago, and my ribs are still hurting because of that. When we paddle out, like the waters were very choppy. And so, I'm not sleeping so well because it's just hard to find a comfortable position. That is sleep disruption. It's quite obvious. So when I illustrated the obviousness of this by, a phrase. So when we have sleep disruption, we may think like, of course I'm not sleeping well right now. It's obvious for this reason. It could be pain or some other stress. Now, insomnia on the hand is a sleep struggle that has become unrelated to circumstances, and it's not obvious. We're wondering what the heck is going on, why I'm not sleeping. We are in this kind of problem solving mode. So oftentimes that can be a real clue that this is insomnia, not sleep disruption. When we're really wondering why, that's probably insomnia rather than sleep disruption, because it tends to be obvious. Now, with that said, now we've talked about why I think that the trigger matters, in a sense that I like to ask about it. I think it matters for coaching purposes, but in some way it doesn't matter. In some way, it actually doesn't matter. The trigger doesn't matter. And now we're going to talk about why it doesn't matter. So going back to, we talked earlier about how insomnia happens. A stressful event keeps us staying awake, I should say. I realize there's a typo there. But it is our stressed brain misidentifying being awake as abnormal. That's really what leads to insomnia. So it is B in this case, or in this example, it is B, the misidentification. That is actually what leads to this ongoing self-perpetuating sleep struggle that we cause insomnia. So exactly what the trigger was, again, makes no difference in terms of how the struggle ends or how we approach it. It's always about that misidentification. So in other words, if I have a student, client, I typically ask about the trigger, but if I didn't know what the trigger was, the details of the trigger, it actually doesn't matter in terms of how I would teach or coach on that. It is the misidentification. It's like the idea in the brain that being awake is abnormal. We have to do something about this. We have to try to escape this threat. that is what keeps insomnia ongoing. And we don't actually, so the initial trigger, it actually doesn't matter in terms of how we leave the struggle. It's all about like educating the brain that being awake is not a real threat. It is a perceived threat, right? So in this sense, the trigger actually doesn't matter. In other words, the trigger doesn't matter because it cannot cause insomnia. The trigger in itself does not cause insomnia. It's only our thoughts around, sleep and being awake that can create the ongoing struggle we call insomnia. So with that said, we are going finally here to my favorite insight. So I want to start here. When we learn about sleep and the human mind and we understand what happened to us, then the fear of being awake fades. And then, in the context of an ongoing trigger, we may still have some expected sleep disruption from the ongoing stressor that triggered a sleep struggle for us. So, we may still have a small baby to take care of. We may still have some stress around a separation or a health issue, right? We may still have some expected sleep disruption, but we don't have insomnia. And the sleep disruption, of course, it's unpleasant. It's not something we want to experience, but the insomnia is what really creates struggle for us, because that's an emotional struggle, And so that was actually not my favorite insight, but I just want to kind of complete the teaching here around, so to answer the question that we had from the beginning, like, will this work for me, or do I have to wait? That you don't have to work. This can lead to this state where you may still have some sleep disruption, but no insomnia, and that is a huge relief. So I wanted to complete that, but now let's head to this one. So with an ongoing stressor, so this is a common situation. With an ongoing stressor, it can feel extra difficult to leave insomnia, and acknowledging this can help. I wrote down, and this is someone who's saying, hey Diane, like, not only do I have this insomnia struggle, I also have to deal with the fact that I have a 2-month-old baby. And I think when we do have this sort of like, we are in a circumstance that definitely is demanding, it can help to acknowledge this. So, so that we don't put that extra pressure on ourselves. When we think like, when we go like, this should be easy, even if I have these 5 stressors, then we're putting pressure on ourselves. Then it becomes harder, because we're like, this should be easy. But when we're like, this is not the leaving insomnia in itself is not easy, and now I have a circumstance that's not easy on top of that. Just acknowledging that, yeah, this is not easy for anyone, and just having expectation that it won't be easy actually in a way makes it easier, because then we don't have that extra pressure of like, it should be easier, right? And that was also not my favorite insight, but here it comes. This is actually my favorite insight. So again, we see here how we can see things differently, but I found actually many times that the student that often is does quite well is a student that actually has some type of ongoing stressor, and specifically the one we just talked about, actually the person who just became a parent, for example. And the reason is that with an ongoing stressor, leaving insomnia can actually be easier, because that stressor demands our attention. And so this is my favorite insight, because it's counterintuitive, but I believe this is very, very true. I've seen this many, many times, that when I had when I have a student who, for example, became a mom for the first time or the second time, it doesn't matter, like somebody became a mom, for example, then that person is not only dealing with all the demands of, having a little baby to care about, but also like now has this struggle with insomnia. But the thing that can actually be helpful here is that as soon as there's this insight happening that, being awake is not a threat, this is all a misunderstanding, then the attention shifts, because there's something demanding attention, which is different from somebody who may not have that much else that is demanding attention. Let's say somebody who's retired or something like that. That can actually, in a way, be tricky, because the mind is this problem-solving machine. And when it's gotten this idea that we're in danger, there's some threat going on, if there's nothing else that is demanding our attention, we can end up in this kind of like problem, like internally problem solving mode. So for anyone who thought like, I have this ongoing stressor and that's going to make it impossible for me to leave insomnia. Well, as odd as it sounds, it can actually be the opposite. Because again, as soon as our brain realizes that, okay, being awake is not a threat, that doesn't need our attention, there's something else that wants that attention from us, and it can actually be something helpful. So I wanted to share, end with that little bit paradoxical, insight that I hope will be helpful. But with that said, happy I was back. I hope, even though I felt kind of rusty today, I hope this made sense. And as always, let us know in the comment section what you thought, anything, any questions, anything that you felt resonated with you. Just leave it in the comment section. Always really, very appreciate it. And with that said, look forward to being back. Have many ideas for new content. We have some great guests coming on for our Talk on Insomnia episodes. And again, just happy being back, and look forward to seeing you soon. Onwards and inwards.